Welcome to the Executive Director's desk, and as I am often not at my desk or at location, today we're in our lovely mission house. Behind us you will see Barb, who is married to the team leader from a group from Brighton, Minnesota, UCC Church. We're excited to have her in the film today. But I'm here today in particular to talk about our what's called the PIT count, or the point in time count, that happens all across our country in most major cities. Generally it's the last Tuesday, usually, in the month of January, which I think is peculiar because it's one of the coldest months. But that also means that areas that have cold weather, that oftentimes they can go to the cold weather shelters, and do the interviews, and they don't have to kind of find people out in the woods or on the beach or wherever they may find themselves. So today I'm welcoming Jonathan, our new Director of Client Services as of 3 weeks ago, and welcoming our new Case Manager, who is working with the Emergency Solutions Grant and also HOPWA, which is housing for persons with HIV and AIDS. And Darren started the very same day in that position that Jonathan started, except Jonathan came from a much farther place, that was North Carolina. And Darren was already here as an intern from Louisiana State University. Go what?
Tigers.
Oh, go Tigers. And how's go spelled?
G-E-A-U-X.
Right, which is the French spelling, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to have him here. What we're going to do today is talk about our experiences, because the three of us were the individuals from Back Bay Mission that went out to do the point in time count, which means we were out finding individuals that are unsheltered, or what we traditionally called homeless, in the places where they are, where they live, where they stay, where they frequent, and ask them a series of questions on our iPhone with an app that basically asks how long they've been homeless, where they stay, it asks their age, it asks a variety of health questions, mental health questions, and it can be invasive, but I think all of us had a really good experience. So would you like to start, Jonathan, and share a little bit about your experience? And you were in Gulfport, right?
Yes, so I was in Western Gulfport, and
which is the second largest city in Mississippi, by the way.
Yes, and that was a surprise to me coming down here. I never expected it to be the second largest city. And so as the second largest city, it has second largest city issues and challenges. And I arrived here the last week in December, and from the staff I had, it was reported to me some of the challenges in Gulfport, and a lot of our services that we provide, like our housing rehab, is all in Gulfport. I mean, the whole time I've been here, it's been in Gulfport.
Much of it is, yes.
And I know that we want to kind of go east a little bit more, so I've been there I've seen the neighborhood, and when I went there at that time, you could see the transformation of the neighborhood that Back Bay has initiated just from that block, and how that's going to change that street, that one block right there.
Dixie Avenue.
It's really going to change that a lot.
So if you would have been with me today visiting our work site, you would have saw even what I would call a bit of a deeper pocket of poverty in Gulfport.
Yeah, and so my experience in the 35 years that I've been in healthcare management is I go to a spot and I'm going for a specific reason, so you really don't see. So what was enlightening for me, this is the first point in time count that I've ever done, and because of the police being partnering with us for support and security, but also the officer that was with us knew where these encampments were located, and also our team leader David from Feed My Sheep also knew where these folks were located. And so we went out as a group and went to the first one that was right there close, and it was abandoned. I think that was the big surprise to me, was how many abandoned camps that we went to. So and they move around. Our homeless folks move around so much, and they leave behind the clothes that are on their bodies. I guess at some point they start to smell, and they can't wash them and get them clean, and so they just shed them where they are, and they get a new set of clothes. And there's mountains, just mountains of clothes, sometimes clothes hanging from trees. That was a big surprise, and the multitude of camps was really surprising to me. That was a big shock.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about clothes, take a bit of a segue, right? There's places like H&M and Old Navy that are considered kind of almost disposable clothing nowadays for folks that have the resources to buy clothes. But most of our unsheltered folks, these are clothes that have been given to them by organizations like our own, right?
Yeah.
And if they're living in the woods or they're living in a variety of places, sometimes there's no garbage cans. There's no garbage pickup service, right? So part of it is they just leave materials, and that can be challenging. It's part of the good thing about what we do is we wash clothes for people. They turn in a set, get them clean, and then get another clean set. But it's strange, isn't it, when you see that, because it makes you feel like here's people, we know people that need clothes, and yet here in the woods you find piles.
Well, you know my personality. I was like, okay, we just need to get a backhoe and pick all these up, go wash them, because there were some good clothes.
To fix it.
I want to fix it.
We're fixers.
We're
Fixers,
fixers.
yay!
Woohoo!
Are you a
Yeah.
fixer? Okay.
And of course, then you get into the interviews, you know, because a lot of these folks, we found some in the camps, but then we also found them, you know, we stopped on the street and interviewed folks. There's several that stick out, but, you know, the survey basically asks what you talked about, and it probably takes less than 5 minutes, but I just appreciate them taking the time, but they understood. Some of them have taken it before. We had quite a few that had been homeless more than 3 years. So they had been through this before, and then they had been informed that this might help with resources. And then they're like, I hadn't seen it. You know, so I mean, they told me, okay, I'll do it again, but I haven't seen any changes. And that was enlightening. But there's one woman that I spoke with for quite a while. She has a car, she's able to work. But in Gulfport, there's no shower program and day center like we have, according to her. And she says that some days it's just unbearable, and she loses jobs because she says, I just can't go to work stinking because the work that I do requires that I'm clean. And so she talked a lot about not having the resources in her community to get clean so that she can continue to work. And she's leaving, and she is living out of her vehicle.
And so how do you make enough money to get out of that situation?
Right.
If you can't even work successfully or hold a job successfully. What was your impression? Because I know for you, Darren, Michael, this was your first opportunity to point in time count, right?
It was. I've done outreach before, but I've never done something where we're trying to bring a very accurate description or representation of what's actually taking place here on our Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So I felt that we were really giving these individuals the opportunity to be heard and be seen, and I think that sometimes that's taken away from them. I also was, again, like you were stating, letting them know that this is really for them, and that we're really advocating to be able to receive more resources, more funding, you know, just more opportunity to offer them, you know, a different chance. So yeah, it was a very emotional day.
Yeah, for all three of us, right?
Yeah, so again, there was a survey, and obviously, you know, it's the same questions for each individual, but every time when you're interacting with someone, there's bits and pieces of a story that are going to come out, and so you just kind of hear, you know, just some very emotional and very heavy parts of people's lives. And
Yeah, like the gentleman that was right across from that abandoned house, and he shared that he was doing fine until Katrina.
Yeah.
And after
Yep.
Katrina, he became homeless and he's never been able to recover.
Wow.
But in being with him, you could tell, oh yeah, he definitely had a career. I mean,
Oh yeah.
very well spoken. It just broke your heart spending time with him, because that one storm changed his whole life, and he's been homeless quite a while.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's an interesting reflection, right? He's been homeless since Katrina. Katrina, those type of events, and I wasn't here, but they're traumatic. And trauma itself we know that many adult homeless folks have had a lot of trauma in their childhoods, and that's part of the reason that it's a challenge functioning in the culture and society in which we live in, what we might call, a traditionally normal way rather than being unhoused.
Yeah.
I was in Ocean Springs, and we didn't cover much ground as I was hoping, but the police department had been going into Ocean Springs and kind of scraping homeless camps, so we did find some that had been abandoned. But what I found, the individuals that I interviewed shared much more than I experienced or than I expected. And the interview took a lot longer, but two individuals in particular, since I've lived down here for now 2.5, almost 3 years, I kind of know the names of the families that have history here, and two of the individuals I met were connected to those families here that streets are named after, right? These big families, Croatian families or families from Slovakia, or French families. One was Slovakian, one was French, and said, yeah, my ancestors have been here so long. I've been out in the woods living in the woods for 2 years. Does your family know? Yep, family knows. I have a good relationship with my family, but they don't want me to move in with them because they feel that that'll be a hardship, and kind of burnt their bridges, but they still have a relationship with their family. So I kind of left scratching my head thinking, so where's the safety net for these folks, right? And like Gulfport, there's no day shelter in Ocean Springs. There's no place really to take showers unless you go down to the beach. You can possibly get a shower when the beach houses are open, but that's not very frequent either, right? So the stories were always powerful, but for some reason that really hit me. That here's from two families that, at least from my perspective, are well-known names and probably wealthy families, but they're not doing what I would think they need to do to help their siblings or their children off the streets. But I don't really know the whole story, right? You only hear the story from that individual. So, any other reflections? So you said it was emotional. I think all three of us experienced that. I had to go see the mayor, so I was only out there for about 4 hours, but in those 4 hours it's draining, because it's what we do and it's what we want to be fixers, and we realize that these are some places that can't be fixed. And I know you and I texted later in the day, Darren, and you sent me pictures, and then I texted back, this is America, right? Makes me sad. That we're the wealthiest country, but we don't have the kind of safety nets or social services, or we're not putting the resources into, quote, solving homelessness, at least for people that don't want to be unsheltered. So I think there's some inequities and injustices there in how we budget our money in our country too. So any final reflections or thoughts before we wrap up?
I think I would just say that again, I've done outreach, but it's not as in depth, and this was a very deep coverage of really what's going on. And we hear all the time of, it's not in my city, or I don't see it, so it's not happening. But you quickly learn that shortly past the tree line, it's real. So even just driving by, I think we were saying, okay, generally I think we're in the right spot, but we had to go into the woods. You just had to get in a little ways, and then it becomes available to the eye. So that, is something that I took away for sure, was just the vast majority and the extensiveness of the camps, and how many camps were really back there. And, of course, after a couple of hours, it was getting to we started early. but I don't know that we could start early enough. I mean, we would have to get.
Oh, yeah.
We'd have to get out
And-
there like 4 to really get the morning going, because shortly after daybreak, they're just like us, and they are starting their daily routine, and that's going to be consisting of going to get breakfast, here in Biloxi, somewhere to take a shower, do laundry. Some are going to work. So, you come across campsites, and I think a lot of them we could tell that there was definitely someone or
Had been there.
others there at some point recent. And again, we have to remember too, whatever's left behind has a chance of being taken. So something as valuable as a tent, things like that, they've really got to take with them. And again, when you're walking everywhere and bringing it with you, you got to pick and choose what you can carry. I would just say the realness of it, of the situation here on the Gulf Coast, was made clear, or more clear to me that day.
Interesting. Yeah. And I walked up to the camps, and I always have peculiar thoughts. My head races, right? But one thing I asked James, who was one of the other individuals out of the 6 of us, I said, who's to say we've got it right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's to say they don't have it right?
Mhm.
These unsheltered folks. And honestly, when we go off on a getaway, we go to the woods and we camp.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at some of these campsites, and obviously they have many, many more items than when we go camping, right? And
Right.
It's all about sustainability and all about making a home for themselves. But we put up our large brick and mortar homes, and you sometimes question, who's right, who's wrong in this, right? So there's no blame on these folks for if this is the way they choose to live, or this is what life has kind of gotten them into. But there was one camp that was really nice.
Yeah.
A woman and her 2 dogs, and she had a large tent, and she had a bed in there, a mattress that was up on crates, and it was better than when I camped.
Yeah.
But that challenge of not having an identity and not having a voice and being lonely,
Yeah.
I think, and isolated is really difficult, and being out of the mainstream. So, any final thoughts, John?
That, as you were speaking, that the 2 ladies that walked over to us in the open field, who were like, we were on that side of the street, and I don't remember who asked the question, but one of us in our group said, gosh, we were just over there, we missed you, and one of them said, oh yeah, we are very well hidden back there, because we are female, and we make sure that we are secure and safe. And they were actually a delight to speak with. They were just so bubbly and picked us up, They were just lovely to talk to. But they also stress that they have to put safety first, and so you don't see us ever, because we make sure that no one sees us, because that's how we both stay safe. And that really stuck out for me.
So for you folks who have been watching this, I guess hopefully we've shared something with you that enlightens you, maybe opens your mind, your heart. I think it's fascinating that you've been at this work here at Back Bay for about a year as an intern, and now here's kind of this next step of experience, right? And this is your first time, and all of this adds to how we perceive and how we understand people who are unsheltered or people in poverty. And it informs us, right? So hopefully us sharing our experience informed you too as our viewers about homelessness. And I think the one thing that we've all kind of reflected on is you can drive around your community, you can be in your community and never experience these folks, except possibly the ones that are on the street corner with a sign.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are unsheltered, sometimes they're not unsheltered folks, but they're all around you. They're in the woods. They're in other places, finding places to sleep and to be, because we know statistically, I think we're saying there may be 400,000, 500,000 people homeless on any given night in America. I think it's much more than that. If you also give a nod to people that are staying in their cars and their vans. So So thank you for joining us today. Continue to be a part of these conversations, and continue to offer your prayers and your resources to Back Bay Mission. We appreciate it. So have an awesome day.